Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. But, Governor, when it comes to our foreign policy, you seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s, just like the social policies of the 1950s and the economic policies of the 1920s.
First of all, Russia, I indicated, is a geopolitical foe. Not a,
Number one,
excuse me, it's a geopolitical foe. And I said in the same paragraph, I said, and Iran is the greatest national security threat we face. Russia does continue to battle us in the UN time and time again. I have clear eyes on this. I'm not going to wear rose-colored glasses when it comes to Russia or Mr. Putin. And I'm certainly not going to say to him, I'll give him more flexibility after the election. After the election, he'll get more backbone.
Let's turn to foreign affairs. As we speak, of course, Senator, there is a Russian warship docked about 200 miles from Miami, Florida, at a port in Havana, the capital of Russia's old communist comrade, Cuba. Reportedly, the ship is armed with giant 30-millimeter guns and anti-aircraft missiles. AFP first reported its presence, but there's been no official explanation for what this Russian ship is doing there. And of course, in southern Ukraine today, dozens of armed men stormed regional government buildings, including the parliament there, and raised Russian flags. Ethnic Russians, in a rejection of the power claimed by Ukraine's interim government, are clashing with Ukrainians in the streets there. What do you think Putin is up to?
I think he's up to trying to preserve his absolute commitment and ambition of maintaining Ukraine as the part of the Russian Empire. You've got to we don't seem to understand that Putin is a KGB colonel apparatchik who believes in the Russian Empire. That's why he invaded Georgia. That's why he put pressures on Moldova, the Baltic countries, and the crown jewel of that is Ukraine. I have said all along, I don't believe he's going quietly, and I don't believe he's going to invade. By the way, the warship in Cuba is sort of just a little saber rattling. But what's really concerning now is particularly Crimea, but also eastern Ukraine, and Crimea is the naval base at Sevastopol, which he does not want to lose. And I believe that's what is happening now is they're creating unrest. He's not going to send troops in a la Hungary. His people and special forces are in there fomenting unrest, and I think he will take further steps in order to achieve a goal of at least maintaining control of parts of eastern Ukraine and especially Crimea. And I believe that he's intent on it, and we need to have a very strong statement about the unacceptability of such actions.
Senator, there are reports that ousted Ukraine President Viktor Yanukovych is going to hold a press conference tomorrow from Russia. He's still claiming to be the president. He released a statement that said, quote, I continue to consider myself the lawful head of the Ukrainian government, elected on the basis of the free expression of the will of Ukrainian citizens. Senator, if Russia is giving Yanukovych security, do you consider that an escalation on their part?
Not particularly. Putin and Yanukovych didn't get along very well. And by the way, these dashes that we're now finding out about really shows incredible depth of corruption. I'm sure that Putin realizes that Yanukovych would probably never be accepted by the Ukrainian people. But at the same time, he's giving him some sanctuary. Watch eastern Ukraine, watch particularly the capital of Crimea and the area around the naval base there. And by the way, they arrested Boris Nemtsov, a former deputy prime minister, yesterday, and are throwing him in jail. Sochi is over. The crackdowns begin.
There's been a lot of talk lately about the Cold War returning. Secretary of State John Kerry just yesterday said this is not East-West. It's not Rocky IV. President Obama last week said this is not a Cold War era chessboard. But talking about the Cold War as much as they have, in a way, almost brings attention to it. Do you think this is a new Cold War? Should the administration do something different than what they're doing?
Well, I've always believed that this administration was incredibly naive about Putin, the reset button, tell Vladimir I'll be more flexible when I'm reelected. It's as I said at the beginning of our conversation, who we are dealing with. He views it as a semi-Cold War, in that he wants the Russian Empire restored, and that means the near abroad, of which the crown jewel is Ukraine. And when you look at a map, you can certainly understand that, and he certainly doesn't want to give up the naval base at Sevastopol because he thinks that lease will be in danger. The next move I think he may make is restricting some of the energy supplies, and we need to help Ukraine quickly, and we need to get them some money quickly, and we need to have the IMF agreement done as quickly as possible so that the people of Ukraine will have a brighter future than the one they've got now.
Senator John McCain, thank you, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Jay.